I'm Russ Cohen. We've got a special guest, Dennis Maruk, one of the best goal scorers. He used to be the greatest goal scorer in Caps history, and then they got this guy Ovechkin, but Dennis still set a lot of records. Hey, Dennis, how are you?
How you doing, guys? Good to be here.
And I'm Michael Lagello, and this is the HockeyBuzzcast here on HockeyBuzz.com. Now, Dennis, I wanted to start with this because, and Ak is just joining the show here. Hold on a second. Let me just bring him in. Hey, Ak.
Hey, I apologize, guys.
No problem. We just started the show, and I was just going to ask Dennis a question here before we get going with the Caps all-time team. Yeah. Dennis, you're unique in the fact that you're the only person I think we've had on this show that played for both the California Seals and the defunct Cleveland Barons. And by looking at the list of your bio here, and you played 2 seasons in Cleveland with, I think, Gilles Malache was their goalie, and then there was the merger between Cleveland and Minnesota, and you played 2 games for the North Stars before you got traded to Washington. What happened there?
What happened was Lou Nanny, his situation there in Cleveland, and the 2 teams where he wanted to stay with his centerman in Minnesota. So he was looking for a first-round pick. I was told that during the summer. He had mentioned it to me, so I just said, well, make the deal in the summer so I can move my family and go to that city. Well, nothing really happened, and then he decided, called me and says, well, come on to camp. The city's going to love you. You're going to be a North Star, blah, blah, blah. And my lawyer was Alan Eagleson, and he mentioned to me, he said, no, there's a couple teams that just go there, rent a house, go to camp, and we'll play. And that's what happened. Why the first 2 games I didn't dress, second one, and the first one I dressed, and I had 1 shift. So that's what happened. I got traded.
And go ahead, Russ.
I was just going to ask you, since we were chatting about it, give us your thoughts on when you used to face the Philadelphia Flyers back in the day.
Oh, they were terrible. No. It was a battle. There's no doubt about it. When I played for the Caps, even when I played with the Seals and Barons and North, going in there, it was always a battle and, tough crowd. But, you when you went in there, you had to be ready because I was a guy that was a, playmaker, goal scorer. And as I mentioned to you earlier, I was a guy that had a little target on me, and they wanted to stop me. And I had some great games there in Philly. But I know one thing, I came out of that game with my arms sore and my legs sore. There's no doubt about it.
Oh my goodness!
Now, Ak, we're doing the all-time Capitals, and I'm calling an audible here because if Dennis is not on this team,
Dennis is on this team.
Okay, good.
He has to be on the team.
Oh no, he's on the team. No questions asked. There, we're gonna put you on a line with Ovechkin. You okay with that?
Oh, perfect. Yeah.
No,
we'll get 70 goals each. Yeah,
there you go.
That'll be good. I can't wait to watch that.
But he did tell me he broke the scoring record. I've been down to DC a lot of times to watch the games, and he did say, he says you've got that record for probably the assist, which I had 76, and the total points 145. He says I'm not going to get that at all. You got that one. That was kind of nice.
That is kind of nice. I mean, from one great player to another. We'll definitely go through this list, and you could help us with who you think should be on there and shouldn't be on there. But I do want to let the audience know that Dennis was a 5'8" guy playing in a league of clutching, grabbing, slashing, everything.
Spearing, yeah.
Spearing,
yeah. Hitting from behind, yeah, everything. You name it.
Well, there's 3 guys that you played with that I want to ask questions on. One, I think, is a no-brainer. We did an all-time Caps team on another show, and I had Mike Gartner as the all-time right winger. Now, he's a no-brainer, but 2 guys who I don't think maybe get lost in the shuffle. One is Bent Gustafson, who had a really good career for the Caps, and the other one was Ryan Walter, who got traded in the deal for Rod Langway. I think it was in '82. Well, give me your thoughts on those 2 players.
Definitely great hockey players. I had the experience to play with Ryan. As a matter of fact, the year I scored 60, Ryan was my left winger, and Chris Valentine was my right winger.
Right.
So we stayed together all year, and we had some games where nothing was going in for us, but Brian Murray kept us together. Ryan was just a great individual. As captain, he was just worked really hard, and he could score, make plays, he could fight, and do all that kind of stuff. So he's a tough kid that came out from out west. And then Gusty came from Sweden, and this guy had so strong and powerful to knock off his puck. I think he used one of the longest sticks in the league. But he was so good with it, and he was really good playmaking. And I think he got lost a little bit in Shelburne and Washington. We weren't the greatest team, and he was just one of those great Swedes that came over and played great.
Oh, yeah. Okay, so I want to show everybody something that's kind of fun. So when I usually put these all-time teams together, the first thing I go to is I go to the I usually go to quanthockey.com, which has like a really good list of like of the all-time statistics. Then so I immediately went to see the Caps, the Caps players all-time points per game, and I'll bring it up on the screen here. It's a little small. I'll try to make it a little bit bigger if possible. But
yeah, somebody on the show is number one, and it's
there, like above in points per game at 1.257. There's Mr. Denny Marouk at the top.
Not bad.
Dennis Marouk at the top of this list, ahead of Ovechkin and Yager. Not too bad there. Not bad company.
Not bad for a guy who was 5'8" and was told he was too small to play in the NHL.
I mean, seriously, that's incredible.
Years. Yeah, it was. I had that. I didn't even get offered a contract when California Seals drafted me in the first pick in the second round. So,
Unreal.
You look at that stat, and I had some, a couple years I had injuries that I would have probably got over 1,000 games, but there was just I played with some great hockey players that certainly were a big plus, and myself, I was almost a point a game there, and all that. So it was just it was a lot of fun, a lot of hard work, and had a lot of great times.
So you played your rookie season with California, and after the rookie season, they didn't offer you a deal?
Well, what happened with when I was drafted by California Golden Seals, my agent at the time player agent was Boom Boom Jeffrey.
Oh,
okay.
wow.
And we went in when I drafted. We went to Oakland and to meet with Munson Campbell, the president, and Bill McCreary. And Boom Boom said to me, he said, "Don't you say anything. We're going to a meeting. You just sit there and listen. I'll do all the talking."
Right.
Well, Boom Boom's French, and he went in. He goes, "My Denis, he scored you lots of goals. He played no minor. We signed contract today." Well, they said no. He's going to play in the minors for a couple of years. He's small, and we feel he's got to gain some strength and all that. And so we had no contract, and I went to camp, and first game was exhibition game was in Los Angeles and I played against Marcel Dion pretty much the whole game, and I had 2 goals and assists, I believe, and first star. And Bill McCreary tapped me on the shoulder. He said, "You call Boom Boom Jeffrey and tell him we're going to sign contract."
Wow.
There's a little story about
That's a great story.
I love that.
Prove because of my size, and at that time I always had to prove it right to the last day.
Denny, on a follow-up with that, so what was the reaction to the white skates? Did you wear the white skates?
No, I never had to wear the white skates.
Okay.
They changed the ownership. The ownership group at that time in Oakland was he took it from Finland, was Mel Swig, the Swig family.
Okay.
And no, we had the teal blue jerseys and that, but we had just the normal skates. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that was okay. No, I wouldn't have worn them. No.
You would have held out on that one?
I think so.
Yeah, but just listen to this though. I mean, okay, his rookie season, he had 62 points. The next, other than a year where he only played 27 games, I would assume due to injury. Right. The next 5 seasons are 78, 71, 90, 97, and 136. Not bad.
No.
Not too shabby.
Not too bad. And look at the team was on. The team was not real successful. And we had some good players, but we just didn't have enough. So, to have those numbers, I worked pretty hard in a lot of the games. I really tried to work really hard on the road because things at home came into place, and on the road it was a lot harder. So I really picked up my game a lot more on the road, and things happened. I think in one year I ended up scoring against every team, so it was kind of nice.
That's pretty cool.
Well, how dramatic? One more question, Nick. How dramatic of a change? Because you were that 136-point year. The next year was the year they traded Ryan Walter to Montreal. along with Rick Green for Engblom and Langway, and I believe that was the year that Langway won the Norris. How dramatic of a change was it from after that trade? Because after that trade, that team was successful.
We finally got in the playoffs, and I mean, you look at the players. We had to give up two good players. Ryan Walter and Rick Green were two great hockey players, and we ended up getting Brian Ingram, Rod Langway, Doug Jarvis, and Craig Locken. That started that change. You got one of a ton of the top defensemen in the league. You got one of the top defensive forwards, checker, face-off man, Doug Jarvis, and then Brian Ingram was a great defenseman too. So that really strengthened. We were weak on the blue line, and that was the big trade. Even though we had to give up something to get good in return, and it really changed. And then they started drafting some good players.
As a Ranger fan, I hated Rod Langway with a passion, but I appreciated what he could do.
He was a tough one, though. I mean,
he was great.
In those days, I mean, I used to drive down with my family to see the Flyers play at the Cap Center down there.
At the Potato Chip. Yeah, I went to a couple times, too.
It must
get over.
Oh, yeah, Landover. It was easy to get to. It was right off the Turnpike, right off the 95, really easy. And I remember going to those games, and you have like more Flyers fans in the building sometimes than Capitals fans driving down there.
Oh, yeah, definitely. We had a good rivalry. Yep.
Yeah, and it must be fascinating for you now. And I remember covering the Capitals in the Stanley Cup Finals and being in the Verizon Center in Washington and remembering back to those days and realizing how far that organization has come. It's amazing. I mean, those are all that Cap Center, the new building, the Verizon Center is just crazy real hockey building.
It is. It's unbelievable. I mean, I went through Save the Caps campaign with Abe Poland, the late Abe Poland, the owner. We just about didn't have a team. It was going to fold.
Yeah,
they didn't have enough support. They didn't have enough season ticket holders, and it was gonna fold. But it ended up he saved it and went on. But the building today, if you go down there, it's just the sea of red, and it's just so loud and crazy. I love going down and watching the games. I have a lot of fun, and it's just great. It's great for the city. It's great for them to finally win the Stanley Cup, and they've been close a couple times, but they just haven't been able to get by those Penguins. But now they've got that monkey off the back, and they just keep drafting, getting good players, and that's what happens when you get a chemistry together and get some good guys and different players. You're going to have a good team.
Oh, for sure, 100%. Wow. All right. Well, let's get into our our all-time Capitals team here. All right. So my top line I already had was Mr. Maruk there with Ovechkin and Jágr. That's my top line.
Okay. Thank you very much. That's a lot of goals right there. There's no doubt about it. You've got I think Jágr was just recently, wasn't he one of the top voted?
He's the top European scorer.
Yeah, exactly. So I mean, you can't move that guy. He was phenomenal. Great hands for a big guy, and then you got Mr. Goal Scorer, Mr. Excitement. I call him the entertainer. That he's my favorite player, even though I'm a Capitals fan.
Sure.
I just like the way he, is he going to beat Gretzky's record if he stays healthy and they have no problems with the league and all that's going on. I think it's going to be close.
Well, I think it's going to be. I think the chances of that are going up because of the fiscal problems that the KHL are having right now. There was a lot of talk about Ovechkin going back to the KHL and finishing out his career. I think he's staying here because the KHL is not going to be financially viable the way things are going right now. So, but continue on that.
I think you're right. I think that he's got one more year in his 13-year contract. And I'm sure there'll be some nice money for him from Mr. Ted Leonsis. So I mean, I think he'll be a Capital for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. Then my next line is, and then you have some, really interesting players. Some of who are modern, some of who are back a little ways. But we already mentioned Mike Gartner, who's absolutely
right.
He's got to be there for sure. Nick Backstrom has to be there on the second line, and for me, the third player I put on there was Mike Ridley. So I felt like Ridley you're going back a little ways. There's a lot of other players obviously in there, and we'll get to them, I'm sure. But I always thought Ridley was just he was definitely a flyer killer. So I saw him play. Maybe I'm a little bit biased there.
I think so.
Well, he was a Ranger rookie, and then they traded him there.
I look at that's a good pick there, Ridley, but I also wouldn't Ryan Walter. Ryan, he played left wing, and he was a pretty tough competitor. day in and day out. And really, I was later on against the Flyers, but really was maybe a little more finesse. But Ryan had the more toughness. Yeah.
Oh yeah, Ryan Walter's penalty minutes were up there compared to.
That's my choice there. I would have put Ryan Walter there.
I'll throw Ryan Walter in there.
Well, it looks like it looks like Ridley was in the Bobby Carpenter trade when the Rangers got Carpenter.
Yeah,
I was impressed. Ridley is, people don't realize, almost a point a game for the game.
No, he was a great player. I remember him as a rookie. Like he's a really
but obviously, like, penalty minutes, 250, not over 580 games, versus
I'm kind of like Denny. I think you should put Walter and drop Ridley to the third line.
I will put Ridley on the third line, and on the third line, I have Ridley playing with Adam Oates and Dino Ciccarelli.
Yeah.
Okay, first of all, you're missing Peter Bondra.
Yeah.
You're missing Dale. You're missing Dale Hunter.
I got Bondra and Hunter coming up.
Michael Pavanka.
Wait. So you're going to put Peter Bondra on the fourth line? You can't do that.
Peter Bondra at center.
Well, no, we're not necessarily. Well, the way my thing works is we're kind of looking at like all-star
it doesn't matter what position.
Yeah,
right.
It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
You shouldn't do lines then. We should just name 12 forwards.
I'm just naming them in the order that I put them down.
Yeah, I would. What's his name, Mr. Backstrom.
Yeah.
Put
Backstrom with Ovechkin.
I would know, and I would put Bondra there.
Yeah. Okay.
Bondra Backstrom and
if Backstrom's playing with Bondra, you're going to get a lot of goals, man.
Yeah.
No, it's not that one at all.
Yeah, that's what I would do. Yeah.
I like the Oates and Ciccarelli together. I like that combination.
Oates and Ciccarelli, yes, together, and Hunter.
And Hunter, yeah, and Hunter. I mean, the other two guys I have. I mean, we are.
The only thing with Ciccarelli is he only had. I mean, he had 120. He scored a goal.
Didn't play much there. Yeah.
Right. He only had 223 games. I mean,
he scored a lot. He scored a lot.
He had 112 goals and over. He scored a goal every 2 games. Which
he was an influential cap though for his. I mean, 223 games is still significant. I mean, that's like
Ciccarelli is Ben Gustafson.
Yeah, I mean,
Gustafson's on my fourth line. Yeah.
I think you could put him in there and drop Dino down.
Yeah, the honorable mention. I mean, Gustafson, like we mentioned earlier, I think that Dave Christian's got to get a little bit of an honorable mention. He played 500 games with them and had pretty good points. And I don't know, Russ. Do you want to go the Alexander Semin route? Because I wouldn't.
Nope.
I would rather go with Bobby Carpenter.
Nope. Denny says no.
Yeah, I said no, but you got to put Bobby Carpenter in there.
There you go.
Carpenter. He was a force of nature when he was great, man.
Carpenter was.
That's how I got traded. That's how I got traded to the North Stars. It was.
That's right.
Brian Murray had to make a decision. I went in to see them, and I played left wing my 1 year. And when Bobby came in his first year, and Brian Murray said, "Hey, you did a great job in left wing. We're gonna put you back at center." And I said, "That's great." A week later, I got traded to Minnesota. That was the thing. That they had to make a decision of they're going to play Bobby a lot or me a lot, and that's
okay.
I have to say this for a team that came into the league in the mid '70s, the 6 defensemen that the Capitals put up that are on this. I mean, I'm just going to say, and if there's one that disagrees with this, Zach, on your list, let me know. Sure. But I'm gonna say Langway, Carlson, Gonchar, Hatcher. Callie Johansson, and the 6th.
I'm still gonna.
Larry Murphy. Oh, either Mike Green or Larry Murphy.
I'm still gonna put Scott Stevens on that team. I'm sorry.
Scott Stevens on. Yeah,
he's got to be on that team.
He was a pain in the ass, man. Still on that team, he was fantastic.
Well,
he was younger.
Murphy there. Yeah,
Murph. Yeah, I mean that's another one too.
You got Langway, Ingram. You got Carlson. You've got you've got Stevens. Look at that crew right there.
Langley. I mean, just can you imagine if Langley and Stevens played at the same time?
Oh, they did.
Yeah,
they did it briefly.
Yeah,
and then you could put Bugsy Watson in there.
So right now,
Brian Bugsy Watson.
There you go.
Want a tough guy back there.
Yeah, you're gonna need it. They're in the division. They're going to play against those all-time Flyers and all-time Penguins teams, so that'll be fun.
If you take the top 6 scoring defensemen, it's Carlson, Johansson, Stevens, Hatcher, Gonchar, and Mike Green. That leaves off Langway and Larry Murphy. So if you include Langway, which I think you have to,
You have to.
you have to eliminate one of those guys. And I'm saying, okay, you eliminate Mike Green because he was a defensive liability, but he was such a good offensive player.
Right,
I'd probably take Kalle Johansson off, unfortunately, even though he was really good.
I would say I agree with you right there. Compared to the other guys,
Yeah.
I would agree with Callie. Great player, but I mean, to put those other guys in.
But this is a hell of a blue line for the Capitals. Wow.
Right.
Caps blue line. And you know who guys are? I don't know if you mentioned him or not because I may have missed it, but did you guys mention Robert Picard? Because Robert Picard is one of the guys that I really felt like. I mean, I know he only played like 230 games for the Capitals, but Robert Picard, I remember being like, he obviously played with you, Dennis.
Yes, very strong, great, good with a puck, can shoot and all that, can skate. So
Yeah.
I mean, he's in there on that offensive side. The defensive part, no.
Yeah.
But the offensive part, he'd be kind of like with Greeny and that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's what I would. Yeah.
And he ended up going to Toronto for Mike Palmatier. So that
Right.
Yeah.
Now, one other honorable mention, and he doesn't belong in the top 6 because the top 6 is so good. But Al Iafrate had great offensive years in Washington.
Yeah.
Great offensive years.
Yeah. And the Mutluck, whatever you call it. Yeah.
The mullet. He balled on top and long in the back.
So what are your top 6? What are your top 6 now here? What are your top 6 overall?
Hey, he did have a fast shot. There's no doubt about it.
Well, that shot, I do want to say, the fact that he did it with a wood stick means that he has the fastest shot still.
Yes.
In my mind, because if he had, if he had a better stick now, if he had a composite stick, could you only imagine what that shot would be?
I still skate and do a lot of charity events, so I do a bunch of stuff. Well, not right now; everything's kind of postponed. But over the years since I moved back to Toronto, and I've done a lot of things with Big Al. A lot of charity events. We do a lot for Easter Seals and Special Olympics and all that.
Yeah.
So, and I've never seen a guy like. I didn't know he was that big.
Yeah.
I mean, he's got size 16 skates or whatever. I've never seen him big foot, and he's powerful.
Yeah.
No wonder he's got a real fast slap shot. I didn't know him playing against him and all that kind of stuff that he was that big, and boy, he's powerful, man.
Yeah.
Big man. Yeah.
It really strained. The Leafs didn't want to move him, but eventually they sort of had to move him someplace else, and they ended up, I believe, when they traded him to Washington, they got Peter Zezel and they got Bob Rouse back for him, and ended up being a good deal for the Leafs. But
yes, it did. Yeah.
But goaltenders.
Yeah, who are the goalies, Zach?
No, okay, good.
All right, who are my goalies? I know this is going to be, it's not.
No, come on,
Just get it over with,
please.
I mean, it's got to be Kolzig and Holtby, right? I mean, at the end of the day, those are the two. I mean, I don't know. It's funny because
because you're a Flyers fan, you want to put Pete Peters in, right?
No.
There's another guy
in there.
that you can years who had that long record with Donnie Beaupre.
See, that's my guy. That's my guy that's the guy I fight with.
Kind of a sleeper there, you know what I mean? I understand Hopi and Oli, they're great guys. I've met them both and done things with them down there, and they're great, and they're great goaltenders. But
Beaupre be ahead of Kolzig? That's the question, I guess.
That's why I was hesitating, because to me, Hopi is, he's won the Stanley Cup. He's
right.
Number one, Hopi. Number one.
Yeah, he's like number one. After that, though, with Kolzig, I was always on and off. Kolzig had like some wildly inconsistent moments, but he was really, when he was good, Kolzig obviously took him to a Stanley Cup final himself. So, I mean, he had some moments too, right? But Beaupre to me was so consistent. Although I do think of Beaupre more on other teams.
I think him more in Minnesota.
Yeah,
right.
He was the goalie for Minnesota when they made the final.
Right.
Me too. And he'll be definitely on the Minnesota team, which will be the combination of Minnesota and. It'll be actually the way I'm doing this is citywide.
I went through a lot of goalies. I'll tell you right now.
Okay,
we don't gotta get into that. We'll be here all day.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, you look at like Al Jensen and Jim Carrey, and I mean, there's a lot of.
Somebody mentioned Pat Riggin in there.
Pat Riggin, yeah.
Pat Riggin played a lot.
Good old London boy, and Patty Riggin was, I'm surprised nobody mentioned Al Jensen or Davey Perro.
Yep. Ron Lowe. Remember? I mean, Ron Lowe was.
Well, we lost Dennis.
Dennis for a second. Yep, we lost Dennis.
Oh, no, you're
back. Still there? Okay.
Yep, we're back. Yep.
Yeah, we remember Ron Lowe, and then I covered him as a Ranger coach. So
Everybody still here?
Oh yeah, we're here. Can you,
Yep.
Hello?
Can you hear us? We got you. Can you hear us? No.
All right.
I think we
Your daughter called again.
I
Lost voice.
You lost voice.
Okay. We'll just
All right. Thank you.
Let him go. It's fine. We'll see you, Denny.
Thank you very much. Somebody texted me.
I'll let him know that we let him go.
Yeah, text him. Let him know we got to go because it's cool. That was quite a treat.
Yeah, that was great. He's a terrific guy. I had interviewed him probably 10 years ago or more, and
Right.
he's just very underappreciated, not by Caps fans, because they really have still embraced him, but just I think general hockey fans don't realize how good this guy was.
I just find it weird though that because he told us the story. I don't know if it was before you came on or as you came on, but
Yeah.
That he played for Minnesota for 2 games before they traded him to the Caps.
Yeah.
And I was looking up. That was the year that they drafted Bobby Smith #1 overall.
Yeah, I remember that year.
And they basically, I think they probably thought that they had too much up the middle, and they decided to move him to Washington. I'm trying to find out the actual trade there. It was a conditional first-round pick.
Yeah.
In the '79 draft, which Russ isn't that the big WHA draft? Or
Yeah, I
is it-
believe so. Yeah.
But then of course he goes back and has a hell of a career in Minnesota. Like he's also
Right, and that's the weird thing. He goes back to Minnesota. They trade him back to Minnesota, and then he finishes out his career there. So
he could very well make a pitch for the Minnesota all-time team.
Mm-hmm.
maybe.
I mean,
They have a lot of guys
in Washington where obviously getting 136 points.
Yeah, that's
Like by far the most points of any guest we've ever had.
and 100.
I'll say that. No,
Well, he's got Laidlaw beat by like 100.
I don't know if we can find anybody else who I think. Gosh, like, what's his name?
136 points and 128 penalty minutes.
That's a good
So
season back then.
So
What was Laidlaw's top point getting? I'm trying to think of like the top.
he was
Other top point getters that have been on the HockeyBuzzcast.
in Stratomatic. He was probably like a B1 to 4 intimidation because he was only 5'8". He wouldn't intimidate anybody.
Yeah, no, I remember why he was such a joy to watch. Like in the early, and I was young, of course, but still, like you just remember him. I mean, he was such a force. And there was some I was going to show some really good pictures of him too that are online and are really good. Too. I'll bring some of those up in a second for our listeners out there, readers.
I mean, are we locked in on the 12 forwards? Because
I think we're good.
Okay.
I think we have them. Yeah, I'm looking.
Ovechkin, Backstrom, Bondra, Gartner. That's 4. Pavanka's 5. Hunter 6. Gustafson 7. Ridley, Maruk. That's 9.
Got Yager.
I didn't have Yager yet. Yager
would be controversial, but I still think Yager was good enough on the Caps.
Yeah, Yager, Ryan Walter, and how about Dave Christian? Dave Christian had 417 points and 500.
We have Carpenter, Christian.
I didn't have Carpenter. I put Carpenter ahead of Christian then.
Yeah, put Carpenter.
Carpenter ahead of Christian. I mean, Christian. It's so hard because obviously I was a Dave Christian fan because he was the Miracle on Ice guy. It was like one
sure. But
he had a really good career.
He had a really good career too, and he was not only was he a Miracle on Ice guy, he was like one of the best players on that Miracle on Ice team. Like when especially in that like the game we did recently where we had that fun time, pretending when we watched that game. The plays that Dave Christian made in that game, without Dave Christian, they don't win that. They don't beat that Russian team. I mean, he made some unbelievable plays. He didn't score goals, but his passing and then breaking up of plays and things like that. He was such a solid two-way guy, Christian.
Well, the funny thing is that Dave Christian, I believe, started his career in Winnipeg. I think he was a Winnipeg. They
owned the Capitals after the Miracle on Ice.
I'm double checking.
I'm sure he did. I remember.
I'm pretty sure it was Winnipeg. Let me look it up.
Remember, his uncle played on the '60 Olympic team.
Yeah, I did.
Yeah, he played 4 seasons with Winnipeg. He went right from the Olympic team to the Jets, and he played.
That's weird. I thought he went. Who am I thinking of?
Yeah, and the reason I remember is because I was in a Stratomatic hockey league that year, and he had that unbelievable card. He had 15 games.
He did. I remember that.
And he had 18 points, and he had this unbelievable shot.
For the Jets. That's right. You're right.
Yeah. But he played. But I think Didn't he play on the Miracle on Ice team? Didn't he also play defense? Wasn't he one of the forwards?
He did.
Defense too.
They had him both on defense. And he was crazy. I mean, this guy was like, he was just nuts. Like he was really,
he's definitely got to be on the, because here are his 7 seasons in Washington: 29, 26, 41, 23, 37, and 34 goals.
Right.
In 6 seasons. Then they got traded to Boston in 1990. So yeah,
right.
He had a great career with that.
Tell me this isn't a fantastic picture. Come on.
Wait, hold on. I was just retweeting. Oh, that's a great shot.
I mean, that's the guy we had on our show today. It's pretty
The
good.
mutton chops, nice.
Oh, I know. He's got a lot of them in here too. Like he was just.
Listen, he was tough as nails and had to be. He had to be.
You know, it's like that's what he was, and it's
the only way he could survive. Like he was right about that.
Right.
No, I love it. I love you. Gotta love
before the show act, we were just basically saying, you know, how many you could count on both hands the number of 5'8" players or shorter that were in the NHL in the late 70s and early 80s, and most of them were guys who, if you messed with them, like a Stan Jonathan in Boston, he would kill you, and you would have to be that tough. So Dennis was that tough.
He basically told you the Flyers targeted him.
Oh, there's no question about it. So no question about him. He really just looks like he's that picture really just makes it like he's a slapshot character to a T. Yeah. He's right out of the movie Slapshot.
Except he would score more than the whole team.
Yeah, there's no. I mean, they really should have like modeled a character in Slapshot. Like they should have had a guy like that size with that attitude. Yeah, there was a certain kind of hockey player at that time.
Yeah, Gary Howitt. There weren't guys who could score like that.
Yeah, like there were guys like that were smaller.
Stan Jonathan, Mike said he's another one.
Yeah, I mean,
Danny Gare wasn't very big.
Yeah,
no, but he wasn't as tough as those guys.
No, but he did have to fight. He was a 50 goal scorer, but he did have to fight. He got into a fight. I remember him getting into a fight with somebody on the Canadiens in the 75 semifinal. That he was a scorer primarily, but he could fight and he would be willing to fight.
Yeah. That's something. Dino Cicerelli wasn't big either. Someone points out, and that's true.
No, but he was tough as nails.
Cicerelli played so much bigger than he was. Like
he did.
But Dino defended himself with his stick. Ask Luke Richardson.
Oh yeah, he wasn't. I mean, a lot of little guys. That tended to be a little guy thing, right? That was like what you saw back then.
Well, unless you were a Swede like Sandstrom, and then he just did it anyhow.
Bobby Clark wasn't big either. You know, like he still isn't.
Boreas. Ask next time you see Paul Holmgren. Ask him how he terrorized Boreas Salming. It was either in 76 or 77 in the playoffs. And that's why Salming essentially had to become the biggest hatchet guy in the league. The only way he could defend himself was to basically be Zorro. And
I'll give you Holmgren's response to anything I've ever asked him. Right here it is. I'm going to get close so I can do this.
I'll tell you the most terrifying thing. I have 2 quick Holmgren stories. The most terrifying thing in the Flyers press box was one day when we walked in and Holmgren was there with a knife cutting cake for like a Flyers anniversary, and I took a picture of that, and it was just like the Ranger fan in me said, "Should I really take a piece of cake from Paul Holmgren with a knife?" That was the first thought. The second one was we have the candy bar. And there's loose M&Ms on there, and I go up there and I take my normal, little cup of M&M, and Holmgren's pouring it in like a, regular like big coffee cup full of M&Ms. He goes, "Go big or go home." And I'm like,
Holmgren has a great sense of humor, and he's so funny. And the funny thing, I mean, but his reaction is usually like that, And but it's funny. Like I've seen him a couple times, just like break down in laughter, like to the point where. And when he laughs, he's like one of those guys who just like
he's a very engaging guy. Actually,
he loses it when he laughs. No, he's really engaged. I did when my Comcast show with HockeyBuzzcast. I had him in my car and I drove around with him in the back and talked to him for a long time. And he was
so all he did was say, "Mm-hmm."
Yeah, pretty much. But he opened up because I talked to him about he was quick to talk about fighting Brian Burke. He wanted me to he always wanted to make sure, like, because he knew that I talked to Berkey too. So he'd always, whenever I talked to Homer when he was a GM about something, and Burke was a GM in Toronto, and he would say, "If you talk to Berkey about this before you talk to him, remind him how I beat him up." All right. Just like,
Heck, I'll tell you after the show, every time. I posted a video of Brian Burke at the NHL draft when he was the GM of the Leafs. You'll want to check that out.
Oh yeah.
It shows that his evaluation skills regarding goaltenders were a little off the mark.
But it also showed his mastery over the media. That's what you should take from that.
Oh no, Burke owned the media.
He did. And
Yeah,
this video showed
Okay.
that.
I
Although
say
he had his weakness, and I knew his weakness, and I knew how to get him to be real. And I will never tell it, but there was a thing that you could do with him that would work with him, and I would joke around him all the time. And I still do.
I say this with all respect. He was very good with the media, but he was also he intimidated the media, which is a skill. And the only guy that he really didn't intimidate was the guy that he sort of went to war with in Toronto, which was Steve Simmons. Steve Simmons will not be intimidated by anybody.
No.
Right.
And I mean, we all know
Simmons' credit, to be honest. I mean,
exactly.
People rip on Simmons, but I would every day of the week rather have a Steve Simmons than another bland hockey writer. Like,
no, I agree. He's a great guy. I mean,
somebody who's got something to friggin' say.
And I don't care what anybody says. I don't care what anybody says. I know Steve Simmons from being in the media room in Toronto, and he is a fantastic guy, and he's always treated me great. So I mean, I know the reputation out there, and I completely ignore it because he's always treated me great. And honestly, you want columnists that have opinions.
I mean, honestly, I always talk baseball with Steve Simmons. He loves baseball.
Simmons has a fascinating thing, like the stuff he's done with in Israel with hockey and stuff like that. He's talking to me about that stuff. He's had like he supported some really fascinating things over there. And someone in that, they say, someone said he's like, Funky says in the chat room, says Simmons is like Larry Brooks. And actually they're really nothing alike. Larry Brooks is a totally different, I mean, they're both, I love them both as writers. But you can hang out with Steve Simmons. You know
what? I'm going to tell you this about Larry.
I've hung out with Larry Brooks a couple times, but not as easily as not for me. It's just not as easy as Simmons.
It takes Larry's very much on his guard, and I think he has to be because you gotta remember he was in charge of the Hockey Writers Association. He did great things. If you remember,
Larry is like he is your activist. He's like your premier activist. Like if you need somebody to be an activist for you, you want Larry Brooks to be your activist.
But you also know that he's a lightning rod when he's at the post, so he knows when he says stuff that it's going to have traction, and so he's probably very much on his guard. I could tell you it took him maybe I was covering probably about 50 Ranger games a year first couple of years, and that's a far travel for me, obviously, and it probably took him 3/4 of the first year for him to start talking to me and actually asking, hey, what did you think about that goal? What did you see? And then over the years we got to know each other a bunch, but it takes him a while and I get it.
And I had the same thing. Like I started talking to him a ton. Like we had a really bad beginning. Like in the beginning, he was like hell bent on destroying me. And
that's not a good place to be.
No, he's like a guy who can do it too. And he was. I think I kind of won his respect by never attacking back.
Yeah.
I think that kind of because I just was as I was I remember I actually talked to Mark Cuban once. Name dropping. Talked to Mark Cuban once about my debate with Larry Brooks, and he gave me advice as to what to do. And he's like, "Yeah, just you gotta just ignore it. Just ignore him completely, and you'll be fine." But but Larry, over time, we got much more we'll definitely talk, and we would communicate. We would call each other back in the day too, a little while ago too. But Simmons is a different kind of character, and they're in very different markets too. That's the other thing. They're very specifically different markets.
Well, and let's stick with Toronto because after our show yesterday, we got all these tweets from that Mayor John Tory basically pulled the permits and banned any kind of public events in the city of Toronto until June the 30th. And, we were all talking about the fact that, okay, that means, the Leafs are going to have to move, if there's a season in starting before July and August, then they're going to have to move someplace Hamilton. But then it came out on the City of Toronto Twitter account that did not include professional teams because the Rogers Center and Scotiabank Arena are privately run facilities by MLS&E and by Rogers. So they could have games without fans in those buildings potentially in May or June if there is if there is that option when it comes to the Major League Baseball or comes to the NBA.
Right after you texted me this information, I went and called a lot of people. and about this and the different things, and I said, okay, maybe they can play in Hamilton. My initial thought was Markham. You say they don't have a building in Markham. I always think they do because they always talk about building a building in Markham. But you're right. Hamilton is not the greatest building in the world.
Ooh, no.
But as I called more people, I also got, I got the other sense of things, which I think is definitely something that you have to realize through all of this, that people are going to, that a lot of these, when something like that, like for instance, Madison Square Garden, let's take that for example. Okay. Madison Square Garden, you can't play there until, I don't know what the date is now, but it's pretty far out too, right? It's like
far out.
Yeah.
Now they might be able to do it with fanless, but they won't be able to do it with fans.
Right. And I think, and a lot of this right now is to discourage anything from being booked there, right? Like and when I talked to the NHL, they said, listen, there's a difference with us because we have like an ongoing relationship with these buildings versus when they're doing something like that, they're trying to tell like, Pearl Jam not to book in Toronto.
Right.
They're not telling the Maple Leafs not to go there because they have an ongoing relationship with them and so things could change quickly. Like for example, he says till the end of June, if this thing in some miracle of miracles or whatever is better by the beginning of June, they can they'll change it. But they don't want it right now. They don't want things in there that they have to deal with, canceling or whatever. They don't want to have to say, okay, Pearl Jam's on June 7th. We're going to we'll book it now, but then we might have to cancel later. They just want to say, forget about it. We're not.
I think those individual artists are being proactive. I mean, I know that I heard Pearl Eddie Vedder and another Jeff Ament on another podcast, and I believe they were saying that they were canceling the tour, and Bieber just canceled his tour, and a few other, and not that I'm attuned to Bieber, but I just saw it online.
Seems like you are.
There you go. Yeah, I'm a big Bieber nut, but it's just I think all of them are being proactive in the sense that they don't know if they can guarantee these venues if they're going to try to do concerts. Even probably, I bet you this entire summer is shot in terms of concerts.
I don't know if the whole summer is shot, but a lot of it is. I will say this: today the biggest news: Wimbledon was canceled.
Yeah. When is that usually?
When Wimbledon's usually around July 4th.
Yeah, that's right.
July 4th weekend.
But the thing was, and Patrick McEnroe was interviewed yesterday, and he was talking about how Wimbledon was probably going to get canceled right now. And the thing is that the French preemptively jumped in and postponed the French Open.
Yeah.
Took a date in mid-September, right after the U.S. Open.
Yeah.
And that conceivably could have been the date when Wimbledon would have taken. For when they postponed, but since it was gone and it probably would be too cold to play in October, they can't just cancel it out.
What's funny? If you polled fans, they would want to see Wimbledon over the French Open. It means more. Plus, if you polled the players, French Open's on clay. They would rather play Wimbledon on grass.
Yeah, they hate clay. They hate it.
I think that again. I think that's pretty bold to cancel Wimbledon right now.
It really is very bold. But I think
that July is far away. There's nothing. That stadium is built for that tournament. I mean, that's like it's not like there's anything else happening there.
You know what the message is, Zach? The message on that one is we don't want to do it fanless. We're only going to do it the one way or nothing.
But I wonder. You have to wonder on things like that if they could be brought back. Like it just
it doesn't sound like it. It's canceled. Like that's it.
They say it's canceled, but
Yeah, once you cancel it, then I think it's.
But you're talking. I mean, it depends on the venue.
This isn't like your parents when they say you're grounded, and then all of a sudden.
I know, but I'm talking about. It depends on the venue, right? Like you're not. People don't have. There's nothing else that happens at that stadium, in Wimbledon.
No,
right?
That's not true. It's a tennis club. It's open all year.
Club, but I mean, it's not like. They can't cancel. Cancel your mom's. Your mom's 40 to 50-year-old women's tournament to bring back Wimbledon if they could. It's like there's things.
I mean, other than the Rolling Stones and the Who's final tour, name me something that was canceled that came back.
Well, yeah, but we've never been in this situation before. Like
okay.
We've never had this kind. They've never been canceled for this kind of.
It is canceled. Canceled means.
Canceled. I know. I get that. It is bold. It is bold to cancel it. That's why I'm saying. I mean,
yeah.
But I still don't buy that things. I don't know. After the NHL season was canceled, I was the guy who said, "Oh, it's not going to be. They're going to come back," and I was wrong. So hey,
listen, we could all be wrong, but all right. So I've got some college signing news, some real good ones actually. First one is the big one, which I mentioned on this show. I want to say 3 weeks ago with John Leonard. He's the he's the UMass Amherst star out of the San Jose Sharks pick. Remember, the Sharks picked him 182nd overall. There was probably 15 picks after him for the end of the draft. He scored 27 goals in 33 games this year.
Wow.
And he was getting really good last year. And if you remember, I spoke to Tim Burke, the assistant general manager, wrote about it on EP Ringside and talked about it here. And that's the kind of thing where I'm telling you the Sharks can get better quickly is with guys like Leonard. Scott Reedy is another one. He had a great year with Minnesota. If they all of a sudden decide they want to sign him, he had about 15 goals, I think. They could get better faster than people are imagining because, again, and no slight to some of their local media, they're only looking at the guys in the AHL. They're not looking at the guys overseas. They're not looking at some of the guys in college. They should be because that's a big part of their scouting. They do a great job scouting college players, and they do a pretty fair job scouting overseas players. And that's something that could really help the Sharks.
Yeah. No, that's I like it. I mean, the Sharks have done a good job with that. You're right.
Yeah. Now, on the team that doesn't need any help, but they still have it, Jack Ashan signed with the Boston Bruins. Now, this is an interesting one. He's a 5'8" defenseman, but he's 185 now. When he was slated to be on the under-20 team for the U.S., his coach was the guy who was the coach. So I felt like, you know what? Because he was the St. Cloud coach, I think he got the push then to be on the team. He had 1 point in 7 games. He was probably he wasn't as powerful now as he was then. Like, I think he was probably 10 pounds lighter at least, and not the player that he is now. And so I think he got thrown into that, and that's fine. He was a great skater, and he's an okay defender. I think he's a decent defender. But, last year at St. Cloud as a captain, 25 points in 33 games, 7 goals. Again, the one thing the Bruins do right, and I talked about the 2015 draft on Sirius yesterday, and clearly the 3 guys they took, only one of them is really a great player in the first round, but they know how to get defensemen. And in that same draft, they got Carlo, they got Lawson, and they know how to build defensemen. And again, Grzelcyk, if you think about all the defensemen the Bruins have picked up in different ways, late round picks, free agents, they've been really good for that for a decade now. I
mean, they got Torrey Krug, who was at Michigan State, right, Russ?
Yeah.
And Torrey Krug is probably going to leave in free agency, not because he wants to, but because they're going to have to pay McAvoy in the next couple of years, big money.
My next big UFA to be them right now.
Yeah, and he's probably going to, because he's not going to get the kind of money that he could get from other teams that are desperate for defense with Boston. He would probably have to take $1.5 million to $2 million a year less.
He's such a hard player to put money value on. I mean, I like Torrey Krug, but I don't see him as that upper echelon defenseman.
Well,
I think he is a really good number 3.
It's gonna have
I agree with that.
It's gonna have to be a perfect fit, Russ. And the guy that I look at is Rafalski, because Rafalski went from the Devils and he went to the Wings, and it was a perfect fit, and he was great with the Wings for a few years. Krug's gonna have to find that perfect fit where
Krug can step up to that level. That like Rafalski,
he's close. He's actually close.
He's close. It's the fit. It's the team.
To me, like when Rafalski was on New Jersey, they had Stevens and Niedermeyer, right? They had like 2 guys who were they're obviously your number 1 and 2, but Rafalski still felt like a number 1 or 2 defenseman playing on New Jersey. He just was not.
And then he went to Detroit, and they had Lidstrom and they had Kronwall.
But he took on that role. But I don't know that Krug is like going to be like the guy who can jump up into a first.
I mean, if Krug somehow got to Seattle, he'd be their number 1. But other than that, he wouldn't be.
Yeah, you can't expect him. You can't expect him to be a top pairing defenseman. I think he's got to be a second pairing guy and your quarterback and your power play. And if he's that, then he'd be a great signing.
And this begs the question: what is the price for a top pairing defenseman for a number 3 or 4?
For 3 or 4?
Well, I think he's going to get paid as a number 1 or 2 because he's a free agent, and all free agents get overpaid. He's probably going to get paid, and I would say the Shattenkirk range of 6'7", 6'8" to probably 7'5" a year.
Yeah, I couldn't do that for him.
No, I could.
Somebody will.
He's got $5 million written all over him. Like he is a $5 million defenseman.
I think it's a little more than that.
Depends how many years, right? But
he had 49 points this year. I mean, let's go with that.
It depends how many years you sign him for. Like if you're signing an 8-year, $5 million contract for,
then he re-signs with Boston because Boston
7 years. Sorry, you can only sign but 7.
Well, no, but the 8 years,
I think he honestly should resign with Boston. I think that is the place where he is definitely best suited. That they play his game is absolutely perfect for the Bruins, like the way they play. And that's another reason why his value is so high. And I worry about him other places because I think that he could definitely, it kind of reminds me of like, I mean, I know this guy was on the Bruins for a while, but he kind of like has like a little bit of Dennis Seidenberg in him to me.
He's more offensive minded.
Yeah, Steinberg could never get near his points. He had 59 points one year, Krug.
No, I know. Krug
very
played for some really better teams.
Remember, Seidenberg played with Chara in 2011.
Yeah, no, but Seidenberg, when he played with Boston, that was older in his older part.
Yeah, right. But
you know, I think that. Yeah, I mean that like get Barry wants $8 million, like Randy said. That's
okay.
You know, like,
I was going to address that. That was the talking point at the beginning of the season when everybody expected Barry was going to score 60 points with the Leafs, with the Leafs wide open offense. I think the first half of the year under Babcock killed him. Now he was a top 10 NHL defenseman in defensive scoring from the point that Sheldon Keefe took over, and that will rehabilitate him a little bit. If there's a playoff and he does well, that'll help him even more. I don't think he's getting. I think Krug will get more than Barry will,
which I think is crazy. Honestly,
Yeah.
I think Barry is much. I don't think Barry's going to necessarily have the success he wants to have with Toronto, though. I think, but if Barry goes someplace else,
Barry.
If I have Barry and Krug on the table,
Yeah.
depending on the kind of defenseman I'm looking for, of course. But if I need a power play guy at all, like I'm going with Barry, I'm going to get Barry.
I think Barry's got
$2 million more than I'm going to get Krug.
I think Barry's got a better shot than Krug. I think he's a better power play quarterback, but I think Krug is a better overall defense.
Krug is way better overall than Barry, and that's the tough thing. Like, you know, it depends.
Well, I mean, this was a few years ago, but Yandel gets similar points to Krug, but he got 5.5. But that's years ago. So you got to believe Krug's going to get 6.5, 7.
But
when Yandel too. So
when you wrote about Barry,
Yandel's closer to Barry.
Yes.
Okay, so let's touch base on something that I did today. That I did last night, right? Or you want to keep moving?
Well, I was just going to say, just finally, when you wrote about Barry in free agency a couple days ago.
Yeah,
there is literally no option where Barry is coming back to Toronto. The signing of Jake Muzzin ended any chance of Tyson Barrie returning to Toronto. So that
is unfortunate because I mean that they definitely thought they were going to keep him when they traded for him. They thought they were going to be able to re-sign him. They thought he's going to stay here.
Well, that was when they didn't realize he wasn't going to.
I mean, obviously, to give up Kadri for a rental. That's not what they were.
They were thinking they were getting a 60-point guy, and they didn't.
Yeah.
Right.
They're not. So last night I wrote something at like 1:30 in the morning, and that was indeed an April Fool's joke, guys. Sorry, I had to have fun with that one, but because I was talking to, and I told you I hate April Fools, but the whole idea, I was talking to somebody. I was indeed talking to somebody at the NHLPA, really late at night, like who just happened to see me online and grabbed me, and I'm like, yeah, you know, like, and I was talking to him, and I said, so. And he actually came up with the idea. He's like, listen, I got an idea for April Fool's joke for you. I'm like, what? He's like, this is what you do. You go out there and you tell them that if we play in July and August, we've already agreed with the NHL that we'll end games in shootouts if they're tied because the ice will be terrible. And I said, oh, that's awesome. So that's why I went with it. It was an April Fool's joke.
Now, I'm going to tell you something I told Mike offline, and I would have said it on the show had you said it was real. I told Mike I had a source at the NHL years ago tell me in no unequivocal terms that it would never happen that they would have a shootout in the playoffs. It would never, ever, 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 ever happen.
I will tell you, and I'm gonna name drop again, but I will tell you that once a year I have lunch with Gary Bettman. I go up to New York. I have lunch with Gary Bettman. We go out to the same restaurant. I sit down and I talk to him. And I will tell you, I've talked to him about this exact issue. And there is no way, he said, as long as I'm, and that's that this will ever change. You're right.
He's dead against it. Yeah.
Like, this is absolutely something that our league has that we hold special to us. It's like,
but Gary Bettman also said that they would never expand the playoffs from 16 teams, and they're probably going to do that this year, and probably in the new CBA they're going to because the owners see the money.
No, I think that's different than this. I mean, this is. I mean, I agree that he has said that before, but but this is something that, you know, there are certain things that are essential. It's almost, and he actually Bettman also considers fighting in that world. Like he actually says fighting.
No, he does. Fighting
is also essential.
He never says fighting is going to leave the game. He never says it.
And you know, and which I've actually argued with him because I grew up a Broad Street Bullies fan. I love fighting, but I do think that fighting has to leave the game. I really do. But that's just because I think someone's going to get killed, and I think that, and I've said this many times, but I think that when someone,
no, but I think, see, I'm going to go with the other side in the sense that I've had too many players tell me if fighting goes away, it will just become worse with the stick infractions, with the spearing, and guys may get hurt worse.
It'll be worse.
You remember Chris Simon on Ryan Holwig? That will
Yeah.
become commonplace.
Listen, Ryan Holwig used to run everybody through the boards, right?
Anthony, I do not pick up the tab when I eat lunch with Gary Bettman. He does make more than me. So I let him. He makes a lot of money. I let him.
We know.
I let him pick up the tab, and he's not John P. He's definitely not a tool.
He is not a tool.
The hatred of Gary Bettman is absolutely absurd. I'm
going to give you my 2 seconds on Gary Bettman.
Yeah.
I've only covered the league under Gary Bettman, but as a fan, I remember John Ziegler.
Oh, yeah.
I spoke to somebody at great length who I did a book with, and you can figure this out if you really look hard, who worked with John Ziegler, and we talked about Gary Bettman, and there was a great agreement that Gary Bettman is 100 times better than John Ziegler.
Yeah,
and 1,000 times better than Gil Stein.
It's not even close. What Bettman does amazingly well is what he has to do, which is you have to realize what the NHL is with Bettman. What the NHL is in general is 31 owners who want nothing to do with each other, who are all ego guys who've made a ton of money and doing in some way, shape, or form, have gotten whatever they've wanted to basically in life. They can buy or whatever they need, they can have. And Bettman's job is to get them to get along. That's his job more than. So the fact that he can get them to work together at all. I mean, there are owners who hate other owners in this league, and there are big teams. There are big.
That's every league, right? I mean,
it's every league. But I will tell you flat out, the fact that we missed the season, it was horrible. I hated it. We all hated it for sure. But the fact that Gary Bettman got the NHL got the owners to agree to do that for the betterment of the game eventually is just the most unbelievable accomplishment, I think.
It is. I mean, you mentioned Mark Cuban. Do you know how many NBA owners hate Mark Cuban?
Oh yeah. But there were teams that needed that lockout, but there were teams that didn't. And the teams that didn't need that lockout had the most powerful owners in the world. Like you're talking about like the Jeremy Jacobs and Ed Snyders and Maple Leafs owners and the Molsons and all these guys up in Montreal. They didn't need to miss a year. They lost everything by missing a year. There was
we don't miss Bob Gooden now. We don't.
No. But that was the fact, and that was the fact that happened. The fact that we got them to agree to that, and the fact is that everything Bettman does that people don't like, he's only doing because that's what the owners want him to do. He has no other options. Like he's not a guy. He throws his 2 cents in there, and he has the respect. But these are billionaires. These guys are like they're going to do what they want to do. So he deserves way more credit. And people who boo him just have no respect.
I mean, he likes that. It's like a heel wrestler thing. He enjoys it.
But he deals with it. I mean, he does a good job with it. I mean, he handles it, but he doesn't like it. I mean, it's ridiculous. It's so ridiculous. I mean, people just have no idea. Why is the game better because we missed a year? Because the only options were with the players where you're not having a salary cap. And if we don't have a salary cap, in the NHL,
Wild Wild West, man.
We don't have like 5 or 6 teams right now.
Right.
Yeah, I think the league probably contracts from the low 30s to probably 22 to 24 because I mean, and honestly, look at the 90s. Look at the money that the Leafs and the early 2000s. Look at the money that the Leafs, the Rangers, the Flyers spent,
and the Red Wings.
That money was not. That didn't go hand in hand with success. They were paying all this money and they weren't winning.
Yeah, no, they weren't. So that didn't make a difference. So the idea was that you had to have some kind of way that the lower teams could be lifted up in a way or be made competitive. I mean, the crazy thing is that, the whole process has really become harder on some of the lesser teams again, because the salary lower limit now is like, remember, it's like $20 million higher than the original salary cap was. So where the lower limit is, where teams have to get to, some teams who don't make a lot of money, where the lower limit they have to get to is really hard. Yeah. And that's a big deal.
And that's why you'll continue to see these trades like Arizona has made over the last couple of years, trading for guys like Hossa or trading for guys like Datsuk, who their contracts were front loaded, so the cap hit is say $7 million, but the money actually paid out is $1 million, and that's the way that they can get to the cap floor by creative accounting. That's the way.
So here's an example. Over the 9 seasons, it looks like, before the lockout, the Rangers spent $517,000. $1 million, sorry.
$1 million,
$1 million, yeah. Isn't that crazy? I mean, think
And
about
the Nashville Predators spent $218 million.
Yeah, no, it was insane. There's no Predators. There's no Ottawa Senators. There's definitely there might not
might not have been Calgary and Edmonton because remember at that point there was league assist. The league
there's
is
probably no there's definitely no Winnipeg. There's no Calgary for sure. The Vancouver was in trouble for a while. You would definitely have lost. You wouldn't have a Ducks team. You wouldn't have a Devils team. There's certain teams you wouldn't. There's just obviously there's certain teams that just wouldn't make it. I mean that's the reality of the situation. There are only we need. There's of course there's no Arizona team. And that is one of Bettman's that has been a real battle for them forever. That is one of those that's a hill that they decided they wanted to die on. It did bring us Austin Matthews. We'll give it that. But the idea of it was that it's a market the size of Philadelphia. Phoenix is a market the size of Philadelphia.
Yeah. It's a top 10. That's the reason why the NHL was so hell bent on staying in Phoenix. It's a top 10 television market.
Yeah, and eventually, if you play it long enough and that team gets good enough, and they are starting to show signs that they're actually doing something, although they've shown it before, but and if they don't build, I mean, that's honestly, if you want to play at a neutral site for the Stanley Cup playoffs, that's where you play because there's no one lives out of that arena. There's nobody out there.
Here's an example. Ready? So Waddell came clean a while back on what he offered Kovalchuk, and originally 12 years, $101 million. Imagine if they'd done that, but they did. What did they do? 7 years, $70 million.
Yeah. No, I mean that was just nuts. I mean, it ends up. I mean, there was so many
even bringing in that kind of money.
No, there were so many situations, and I know that people hate Bettman for they were we shouldn't have the Arizona Coyotes in Hamilton. That wouldn't have made any sense, guys. Like in the long term, that doesn't make any sense. I am all for a second team in Toronto. I'm all for that. I've been for that forever.
But it's never going to happen.
It's not going to happen, and that's fine. I don't get why it doesn't. I mean, I get why it doesn't happen, but at the same time, and that's probably this is actually just as a preview of my blog for tomorrow is making a second team in Toronto work. But that's what I've been talking about for a long time because I honestly think a city of that kind of hockey craziness. But Mike, what would it mean? And we'll talk about this tomorrow. We'll let this be tomorrow's topic because I want to know what you think would happen in that, how this would play out. But
okay, I'll save my fire.
Yeah, save your fire for tomorrow. I also today in my blog, definitely feel free and get involved. I want to on Wednesdays. I'm doing what I call the Wednesday Wars of who's better. Last week I had Shurskin versus Carter Hart. This week I'm going with Nathan McKinnon versus Austin Matthews. In what I think is a pretty good battle of who's better. This kind of goes back
to who my winner is. If you
want to know, because this goes back to the old days of the Hockey Digest.
Again, it's two completely different type of play.
It is. So now,
you guys remember the Hockey Digest? The little Digest was a little magazine. It was like this size, and one of the things they did better than anything else was this. They would always have who's better on it on the cop front, and I love it. And it would usually take players that you wouldn't necessarily think of comparing to each other. Because there usually was something like they were different kinds of players, but that's why a discussion starts. So Nathan McKinnon versus Austin Matthews. Go ahead, Russ.
I don't think it's entirely fair, like Mike said. And right now, I would take McKinnon because he does more things on the ice than Austin Matthews does. That's just plain and simple. If you want to say Austin Matthews scores more goals, of course he does, but that's not McKinnon's strong suit.
Right. Yeah. McKinnon is a prototypical center, a great playmaker. He can score goals. He's got unbelievable speed, unbelievable vision. Matthews is a goal scorer. He's a sniper. It benefits him to have playmaking wingers like Nylander, like Marner to feed him the puck because he will score 50. He will score 60 in his career.
Yeah.
Whereas I don't think McKinnon will ever, but McKinnon will have 120 points.
Yeah.
They're two different
points. Yeah. I mean, is that where you are, Russ? You guys go? Are you going with McKinnon then?
I would go with McKinnon. Yeah,
right. I mean, I would go with McKinnon if we're talking, because I think he's for the position that he plays, he's a better fit He's a center. He's a prototypical center, and he's got unbelievable speed and unbelievable playmaking ability. Whereas Matthews is really great at center. He's going to be, and he's improving game by game as a defensive center. So he could be in a year or two somebody who scores 50 goals and plays defensively like Kopitar. But right now, you could put Matthews on the wing and he would fit because he's a scorer. You can put a scorer anywhere.
Here's the way I would do it. I'm gonna bring it down to this.
Yeah.
So right now we're at the end of the game, and imagine it's like an all-star game or something, but it's Olympics. Imagine it's but it can't be because they're.
Yeah.
Just imagine it's like an all-star game.
I'll tell you, give it a perfect example.
And they're both on the bench. Hold on, and they're both on the bench.
They play together for Team North America.
There you go. And they're both on the bench, and I have one shift left. I'm going to put McKinnon on that one shift because he will make more things happen where somebody else has to make it happen most likely for Matthews to get in that scoring position. He's not going to do it on his own.
Yeah, and remember this. When they both played for Team North America, McKinnon was coming off of his worst season in the NHL. That was when he signed that contract, which everybody says is the biggest bargain in the league. And Matthews had not played an NHL game.
Right.
So he was not unproven because he was the number 1 overall pick, but he was going into this only having played in the World Junior in terms of an international type of thing. And he was originally a 4th line guy who ended up playing on the 1st line at the end of the series.
Yeah.
So,
Team North America is one of the great teams that was ever put together, and the league will never do it again, and they're wrong about it because it was one of the great teams that they've ever put together for any kind of hockey.
It really was. That team, I mean, if that
they got screwed in that tournament,
if that tournament goes a little bit longer, the longer that goes, the better that team gets at playing with each other. Because you could see it the way it was. Eventually, they become maybe the best team that's ever played. Like
but there was an issue in one of those games.
Oh yeah, there was an issue. I mean, they did get screwed, but it wasn't so horrible that it was like worth saying that they totally got screwed out of it. I mean, it was a tight game. They it's the kind of game that they got screwed, but you also said you shouldn't have been in that position in the first place to get screwed.
Sure, that's fine.
Because it wasn't like they got totally screwed out of it. But that team, watching that. One of my greatest thrills, I mean, honestly, as a reporter, was getting to watch that team live. Like to get to see that, to be in that building and see Team North America work the puck with like Gaudreau and Matthews and McKinnon and the it's just
Carlson and Riley and their defense
Jones
and remember Matt Murray gets hurt too, which ends up hurting them a lot.
Ekblad.
That's where they end up actually getting
Shifley, McDavid.
Let me just respond to one thing,
and
then there's a breaking story here. I think it was Jerkball said last season Matthews didn't have Nylander. Yes, he did. In the regular season, Nylander played almost every game on the wing with Matthews. In the playoffs, when Kadri got suspended, they had to move Nylander to center. But he played the entire season with Matthews, so he was the playmaker for Matthews when Nylander came back from the holdout. The breaking news is the Ottawa Senators are reporting 4 additional members of their organization are positive with the coronavirus, and they all traveled to California. So it was that California trip. It was that California trip that they got exposed.
It shows you how like crazy contagious this is,
Yeah.
To me, so I mean, and my thoughts on this are going to be obviously different than both of you guys because you guys know I'm a Matthews fan. I'm also McKinnon's fan.
You're painting us as non-Matthews fans.
But what I'm saying is, I will argue Matthews over McDavid. So you're talking about like a person who says because I think that's how good I think Matthews is and can be. Now I'm going to say let me finish where he is now. I know you watch him all the time, Mike, obviously. And
No. I was going to say choosing between McKinnon and Matthews is like choosing between a T-bone steak and a porterhouse. They're both great.
No, they're both great. They're both great. I think that right now it's a dead heat with Matthews Matthews is going to get better. Matthews will be better than McKinnon eventually. That's my feeling on it. Right now and I do agree they're different. McKinnon's faster. McKinnon's a better playmaker. Matthews is a better shooter, one of the best shooters we've seen in the NHL in years. And also, like I said, the thing that always amazes me about Matthews, I think Matthews is maybe better at positioning himself on the ice. Matthews is great at being in the right spots. and Matthews is really, really good at receiving passes, which I always talk about.
Yeah,
it's like the one thing that just kind of blows my mind. Like his stick, his ability to get a pass that's anywhere within a 6-foot radius of him is.
There's no doubt that Matthews is a dynamic scorer, a goal scorer, a sniper. I just think right now, Matthews, I think he's an above average playmaker. He's not like McKinnon.
No, he's not a McKinnon playmaker. No question about it.
Right.
But if I'm in that same situation that you are, Russ, I figure I have enough other playmakers out there. I want Matthews in front of the net to bang that puck home. Like if I've got
somebody has to get him the puck. McKinnon could do it on his own.
You're not the best. If you have that team out there, you're probably gonna have both of them on there, obviously. But if you got that, say that North American team, and it comes down to, you have McDavid out there, and you got, I don't know who you got on the point, but whoever you have out there, and you got one more player to take. I already have McDavid. I already have other guys on the ice right there that are great playmakers. I'm putting Matthews in front of the net because that's where he's just ridiculous.
Okay. But my argument is McKinnon, when he gets through the zone, is going to have 3 guys on him. He could easily dish off to an open guy. Matthews may not be open, and he might never get the puck.
But the benefit that Matthews has is that he's got 2 world-class playmakers, either Matt Marner or Nylander playing on.
Yeah, they're not on this team, Mike. So that's a farce.
But he's got McDavid on his team. He's got McDavid.
They're not on this team, Mike.
But the team that we're talking about,
yeah,
he's got McDavid, and he's got Gaudreau. And he's got players who are gamers who are going to make.
We didn't know, but McDavid's not on the ice. We just said it's between those two. McDavid's off the team. He's graduated off this team. Now it's just
why is he graduated?
Because he has.
All right, so if you've got just a bunch of scrubs and these are the only two, then yeah.
No, but I'm just saying this is what the idea is. McDavid's not there. You can pick any defenseman you want. You can pick other guys. But if McKinnon's going to be the main guy or Matthews is going to be the main guy, McDavid's not there. Maybe he's injured.
If you're trying to tie the game, I want Matthews around the net to tie the game. Like that's like you're going to have other guys.
Not yet. No. Nope.
I think eventually it's not going to be close. I think eventually Matthews will take over.
We'll carry this on another day.
Yeah, for sure. We got to go. Thanks, guys, for hanging on with us for such a long show today. We very much appreciate it. And we will be back again tomorrow. So if you like the show, you want to support it, please go to patreon.com/hockey and support the show. We could use a couple more people in there, giving like a couple more bucks a month. That would be really helpful for us. Right now, it's advertising and everything on the internet is way down. If you're following, the economy is not doing the best right now. So we want to try to keep all of our writers on staff and keep everybody working. So guys, remember, without the buzz, it is just hockey. We will talk to you